Welcome. This is the fourth and final class in our series on uniqueness and harmony. And Gail is going to start us off with an original poem that she wrote.
Come gently into the infinity of your days as you distill the oasis at the center of your way. This process alchemically instills the respect needed by thee. Love, adoration, value, praise must come from within as you meditate and pray. Anoint yourself with best gifts divine as you step forward in earnest at this healing time. You are a star who is meant to free your love, truth, and possibility. Aho.
So I was thinking about what would be a couple of key themes to keep in mind when we think about harmony and maintaining harmony in our life, both our inner life and our outer life. And what came to me, the first is equanimity. And Hazrat Khan has this wonderful phrase, he calls it the smiling forehead. So it means equanimity, it means being able to maintain our centeredness in the midst of whatever circumstances we find ourselves in. And that doesn't mean we engage in the spiritual bypass and just go, I'm going to close my eyes and go to the land where everything is just light and love. We're still participating fully in life, but we don't let ourselves get thrown out of balance by circumstances that are going on. We find a way of relating to a circumstance that hopefully can help bring about harmony, not only in ourselves, but also in the external situation. And something that helps with this when we're in a difficult situation is to remind ourselves that that circumstance is not going to be the way that things are for the rest of our days. And we can think of many times in our life when we had periods of difficulty, trauma, loss, grief, whatever it might have been, upheaval, but here we are still kicking. We got through those, and having a confidence that we can get through whatever circumstance we find ourselves in. And when we find ourselves thinking, well, how come everything can just always be beautiful and smooth? Because life doesn't work that way. If there weren't both ups and downs, the ups wouldn't mean anything. If there weren't sorrow, then happiness wouldn't mean anything. But it's recognizing that all of that is a part of the symphony of life. And the other theme that came to my mind for our maintaining harmony is perspective. And that means being able to, in the midst of a situation, shift our perspective, shift our vantage point. And we've talked about before how we all have egos, and our egos are constructs. Our egos are a construct of a sense of identity that we have created and which has been reinforced throughout our life, that we think that that's who we are, and we tend to think that that's fixed. And we say things like, well, that's just the way I am. But it's not. It's just how we've tried to adapt to circumstances, and we can have a different perspective. We can change our vantage point, and that often is the key to getting unstuck when we're in a difficult situation. So we can have a perspective in the midst of a conflict, trying to see things from the other person's point of view. Here Live, I talked about getting into the consciousness of the other person. But also we can have a perspective of seeing a wider scope of timelines in our life, not just the present, but past events, and anticipating what's going to likely emerge in the future. And just seeing what's going on right now is just a part of the story. It's not the whole story. So those are ways that we can help to maintain harmony.
So we did have a practice that we did, I believe last week, Yahani, G-H-A-N-I, which means smoothing the way, the smoother of the way. And we were having a little discussion and preparing for this, and decided it's not only for then, like I need things to be smooth right now, it's even for the future. And it can also be widened to other beings. So, and that's the way with all of the practices that are really the names of God, that we can accentuate different parts of it and kind of focus on, now we're thinking of the future, now we're thinking even the past. How about that? To smooth the way of somebody that's had a hard time in the past? That would be something to try. And just thinking of all the possibilities that are waiting for us as we begin to realize who we really are and what is the potential.
So something that some of you have heard me talk about in the past is something that I call looping. So what does that mean? I'll tell you how I discovered this. This was several years ago. I had to have 3 crowns put in. And the dentist said, well, we could do one this time. You can come back and do another, and come back and do another. This is when I was still working in my psychology practice. And I said, you know, it's hard to take out time to do this. Let's just do them all right now, today. And he said, you sure? Okay. So, you know, when you're at the dentist, they're doing stuff like that. They prop your mouth open. You put something in there where you can't close it. And it wasn't that it was painful, but it took more than 3 hours to do all of these things. And you know, while it's going on, I'm first thinking, oh my God, what have I got myself into? But then the thought just came to me. It sounds like a trivial kind of thing, but it really helped. And I'll explain how I've used this method in other circumstances. I just remembered that I was going to be at home later that day, watching TV, reclining, very comfortable. And so I could remember myself being in that dentist chair earlier that afternoon, and I could send feelings of reassurance and comfort to myself in the dentist's office. And as soon as I did that, so looping is like connecting 2 different times together. The rest of the time of the dentist was just easy. So I'll use this technique when I'm on a long plane flight, and I don't like turbulence on plane flights. I don't know about you, but now when we're in turbulence, what I'll do is think about what my destination is, and often it's going to California to visit our son, his wife, and our grandkids. So I'll envision being there later that day, seeing my family there, and just being, and again, sending those feelings back to myself on the plane, and then it's easy. So we can loop things across times to help bring about a feeling of harmony that can free us from being stuck. And I started thinking about, Hosmer Khan talks so much about music and harmony. And we could say that each of us has our own story that's being created over the years in our life, but imagine it's like a musical composition, okay? And imagine at different times we've gotten just little bits of the composition, so we don't know what the whole thing's going to sound like, but we have like a little bit, and maybe we forget about it, and then another time, and then we're kind of remembering, well, this is a little bit of the theme of what happened before, and now this has been added to this, but something is emerging that is beautiful and harmonious. And what I'd like to have us do now is listen to a bit of a beautiful piece by Arvo Part. It's A-R-V-O, last name P-A-R-T, and I'm going to put a link to this music on the YouTube recording of this class, so you can listen to it later, or anyone who's not present can listen to it. So I would encourage you, if you're listening to this recording later, just hit pause on the class recording and click on the link and listen to at least 5 minutes of the music. And for copyright reasons, I can't record the music right now, but you can listen to it on your own. So that piece is called Spiegel, S-P-I-E-G-E-L-M-I-M, Spiegel, S-P-I-E-G-E-L. And you can either find it by clicking on the link that I put with this YouTube recording, or if you have Spotify, you can find it there.
Well, I would like to add a little bit in regard to harmony as being in old traditions perhaps, or some traditions, we want to be just very still and not be involved in things. We just will go into a deep meditation, and nothing wrong with that, off by ourselves though, and quiet. And it's a wonderful thing to be able to be in the midst of life and still get to that kind of feeling. And one way of doing that is finding the harmony that's all around us. I always wondered why I seemed to feel more God more when I was in nature, walking in a beautiful place, or looking at trees, and then coming to church. Well, I really love a lot of parts of it, but it was so easy when I was walking out in nature. So, but finally I've decided that some of the reason for that is, now it was very easy with the music that was made, probably for a purpose of harmonizing and calming people and everything like that. But then when we're on our own, it's up to us to look around and see what can be pattern, I think of as an artist, that I can take a look at. And just like music, there are relationships among things that I'm seeing people wear different things here, and I can look at the patterns, and there's a calmness that comes over me when I see how these relate to each other, and even the colors relate to each other. And each one of these is kind of an example of harmony. And then even listening to the birds when we're walking, looking at the plants and seeing, well, this one's a little bit bigger than it was yesterday, and now here's a bigger one than that, and we see that kind of pattern. Quite a long time ago, when I wasn't really very much into meditation or anything, I would look at trees and I would feel like I can feel every branch on the tree. Somehow I just kind of let myself go and just surrender to that, but it really is a kind of meeting of both sides. And in that, that pattern that was in the tree, I somehow found within myself. And this is some of the secret too of being one with the divine, that we are multidimensional beings, and if we can allow ourselves the treat of enjoying all that has been given in the manifest world, it can be not only in the dentist's office, but in all kinds of situations, we'll find a way to find that harmony and share it with others.
So let's look at where we've gone on this 4-session journey about uniqueness and harmony. We started with the notion that for there to be harmony, there needs to be balance, there needs to be equilibrium, and it needs to start with just the parts of ourself, our individual self. So there needs to be a balance in our physical body. We need to tend to anything that's out of balance that needs attention. And we did a little meditation that is in the recording from the first of this 4-part series on that, the harmonizing the different parts of ourself, feeling just our physical self coming into harmony, all the parts of our body coming into harmony and resonance with each other. And then we moved on to harmonizing our mind, because what's the nature of our mind? And the most wonderful, colorful description of the nature of our mind was some Indian guru described the nature of our mind as like a psychotic monkey that's been stung by a scorpion. And I've often said that if any of us, myself included, could type fast enough to write down every thought that we had for, let's say, 5 minutes as they came up in our mind, and showed it to someone else, they might say, did James Joyce write this? Is this part of Finnegan's Wake? This doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That our mind just tends to ramble, although we have times when we're really focused and zeroed in. But we can find a way of harmonizing our thoughts, let them settle down and find a calmness that underlies whatever thoughts may be passing through our mind. So that was part of that meditation. And then we moved on to harmonizing our heart, our emotions, because our emotions can throw us every bit as out of whack or more so than our thoughts. And we all know that. Turbulent emotions that may rise, whether it's fear or anger or jealousy or resentment or whatever it might be, then we just get carried away by a tidal wave of those feelings. So again, we can find a place in our heart where it's more like the eye of the hurricane, where everything is very calm, even though around it the winds are really swirling. And then on the spiritual side of ourselves too, we can harmonize that part. But all this has to do with just harmonizing our individual self. And part of the task of being able to do this, which goes with shifting our perspective, is shifting away from a dualistic identification with ourself. In other words, feeling like this is me, this is my body, this is my mind, this is my heart, this is my soul, and I'm separated from everything else. And so I'm going to find the best way I can of taking this and relating to everything. And that's certainly, we have to start from there, but we're very limited in what ultimately can happen if that's our frame of reference, because in reality, we are deeply and totally and eternally interconnected with everything else in existence. So when we can open up to that, that frees us from so many stuck places of thinking it's all about this separated vantage point trying to do something to itself or do something to something out there, as opposed to finding a way of harmonizing what's happening with the vantage point and everything that we are in relationship with. So again, this is a widening perspective that helps us to experience harmony. And then one more thing, because Diane's got some good things to share about desire, is harmonizing our outer and inner life relationship and harmonizing our relationship between our manifest and transcendent self.
Desire, sounds like that's the next topic here. And in the Sufi tradition, the word is himma, H-I-M-M-A. And it is the act of ardently desiring. So we were talking about calming things down there before, and now we're talking about finding that desire and desiring something with the whole of our being. It's called himma, H-I-M-M-A. And if you want to refer to more about this, Alone with the Alone is a book by Henry Corbin, and he's very good at describing this whole process. So the idea is that we need to, first step is to harmonize with the divine, to think about the divine and think about the wider scope of our desire. The things that we really want to have the most. It might be about the world or by people in the world. We focus then on every person has their own imagination, and we can use that imagination to really focus on something that we would like to have happen in the world, let's say. But usually in the imagination, things have existence only in the imagination. It might be a very helpful thing for an artist, for example, for a musician, to imagine something and now bring it into life. But it's first of all, it's only in that imagination. And so there's some work that has to be done to bring it into the world. Himma is imagining with the divine in such a way that it actually comes to pass. I'm going to give you the little example that I have a little bit more about later, which is that I desired so much to see the eclipse yesterday. And you know how many days that we had clouds. I was like, oh, wow, how 4 days of clouds, and they're so thick. You know, on the weather, they're going the lower area, the middle area, the higher area, all clouds. And I really wanted so much just to have a glimpse of that beautiful crescent in the sky. And I looked, and there it was. It was clouds all around it. In one place, it was whiter than the other areas. So I thought, well, maybe I'll look there. And I had my other glasses. And I looked, and sure enough, there was the crescent. Oh my gosh. And I ran in, and I told him, and he came out, and he saw it once. And then it came back again. And then it came back 12 times. And then, by then, it was staying for a while, for like a whole minute, or maybe 3/4 of a minute the next time. And there hadn't been any opening to anything like that. Well, that's not exactly what we're always going to be looking for, but I'm saying that sometimes it's surprising. Now, all those coincidences that we've all had, we say, oh, how could that have happened? The radio, all of a sudden there's this song, and it means something to me. I've talked about that one too. But all the other ones that happen to you, this is your hima working. This is your desire. And I love to hear this part of it. The Sufi's heart is the eye by which God reveals himself to himself. Your heart is kind of the way that it's shown. And it's coming from the divine also. I mean, my desire wasn't only me wanting to see this crescent, it was this desire, oh, I know more than anything, to be blessed as a child of God, to know that I'm in connection with everything that is, and to have that feeling, So, to become that being, and each one of us is called to do that, because we're talking about uniqueness too. So each one of you, if I talked about this in your life, what would that be? What are you ardently desiring? It always brings tears to your eyes, and opens you, and this can be something that opens and has an existence in this material plane. It also could have to do with linking different parts of the divine manifestation, bringing an opening that never was there before. I bet this has happened to some of you, like looking at a tree or a plant or something, and there's like this aura or something, and there's this, like you feel this, and then when you're with a friend, you might think of this, and they have a wonderful feeling, and you're carrying this with you. That's all this beautiful hima. So we don't become spiritual people just to go all by ourselves and make everything seem fine. There's an active part of this, and there's the connected with God part of it, where we're feeling this incredible inheritance, really. When we talked about Zoroastrianism, some of you all, we talked about the that we inherit from the Sveta Almighty, the archangel of the earth, and that we are given purpose in this life. And sometimes it's taken us 75 years to come to a realization of what that is that we can bring. But the creativity, and think about all the different creative pursuits that all of the people here have. That's all this wonderful practicing is what it is. Kind of working those creative muscles, and then finding ways, like Gail bringing that beautiful poem to us today, that changes things. Who knows what happened or will happen as a result of what you learned and heard from what she had said.
So Osman Khan says that every desire begins with a divine impulse. And so we might be thinking, I have some desires that don't seem very divine. What happens is along the way into consciousness, they can be distorted 180 degrees. But the original impulse comes from the divine. And then you might think, well, my task is, and a lot of people think of spirituality and religion in this way, is to just get myself out of the way so nobody's home, it's just God coming through. Well, that's a beautiful ideal, but I don't think that's what our purpose is. Otherwise, why would there be unique beings if we're supposed to erase ourselves? But what happens is that original divine impulse is transmuted by what's added to it by our life experiences and what desires originate in us from our connection with the divine, as Diane mentioned. So it's the two sides in relationship that enable a fulfillment of that desire to take place that's different from how it started, and it's different from what you would have thought of just from your end, and you could think, well, it's different from what the divine being could have known from the divine beings. And so a little phrase that came to me, and you can try this out in your own meditation, it's very simple, is I complete God as God completes me. I complete God as God completes me. And this is a variation of something even Arby said hundreds of years ago. He said we are all human divine beings, and in a relationship of bi-unity, and he says that neither side exists without the other, neither side has meaningfulness without the other, and then more paradoxically, each side is the creator of the other side. So, back to harmonizing and what's the purpose in our life? Well, you could think about one purpose is just to be a peacemaker, which we could use a lot more of. I'm a Libra. I mean, that's my tendency to want to just find ways to resolve conflicts, but that's not our sole purpose. Our you could say our dharma. Our dharma is something that comes forth from us that's more than just a restoration of a level of harmony. So that's where it needs to start. That's back to we need to come into equilibrium, we need to balance the different parts of ourself, we need to harmonize the relationship with those parts of ourself, we need to harmonize our inner and outer, we need to harmonize our relationship with the divine. But then what? You know, is that all that it's about, just to get back to a nice place? No, it's okay, where do you want to go from here? What do you want to bring through? And this is what Diane was talking about him of the desire that arises in us by virtue of the circulation between what comes from the divine and what returns to the divine from us, and also what comes to us in our relationship with all the beings in our life, everything in nature, everything in the world, all the times in the past of our life, all the times that have not occurred yet, all the beings in subtle realms of which we continue to exist. They're not anywhere but here. All of that is a part of the story. So this last class initially was going to be about the allegory of the soul, which is like our soul's story. And so we could say that the allegory of our soul is the music of our soul. But this music, like the little passage I played earlier, has themes, but there's variations on the theme, and it's unfolding in ways different from what has been before, because there's always new input to it. And then we're bringing forth something into the future. So as Diane mentioned, harmony is not a passive kind of experience. It's, and I've talked before about presence is not something passive. It's not that we're just, okay, I'm in the room talking to you, you're in the room hopefully listening, and we're each present, say tuned in to the other. That's good, that's the necessary ingredient, but there's also a presence that emerges by virtue of that connection that enables things to unfold that couldn't unfold otherwise. Diane and I, so many times over the years in classes we've done, whether individually or together, have had inspirations on the fly and find ourselves saying something new that we had never thought of before, right in the thick of the class. And it's not just... Some
of it's from you.
Yeah, it has to do not just with us and what we've known in the past and what we've studied and our meditation. It has to do with all of you, because we are interconnected, and when we're all tuned into each other, there's a circulation of light in every which way that enables new inspirations to take place. And oftentimes it's been the case, I'll use an example, when I've had a meditation class at our house, and I'll do meditation, and at the end somebody might say, well, I had this question in my mind, or questions, and you've answered all of them. Well, I don't have ESP, I'm not reading people's minds, I'm not trying to figure, well, I wonder what they're wondering about. I'm just saying what's coming to me, but what's coming to me is, and being vocalized, is the response to the desire of the people that are there, and that desire gets a response. And I don't have to know, well, let's see, what should I put here? Does this, I'm just expressing what seems to be something very natural. So when we have these experiences that from one perspective seem very magical, and they're wonderful. I mean, the synchronicities of the song on the radio, or the eclipse, just the sky clearing, and so on. And from another perspective, when we are in that natural state of interrelationship, and when we have, Hazrat Khan said, there's no desire, true desire of the heart that is not ultimately fulfilled, if not in this life, then beyond. But when we're really tuned in and we're really in harmony, there can be kind of a snowball effect of these magical things just happening many times, even in the same day. And what seems magical from one perspective is very natural from another. It doesn't mean they're not wonderful. So
Meditation
this would be a good time for a meditation. So, close your eyes. And let yourself have the intention that you would like to be open to a desire arising from deep within your being. And it may be something that you already have some inkling about, or it may be something that surprises you. So don't try to prefigure what you think it should be, but you're just putting forth this intention. I would like to help to foster the fulfillment of a desire that's coming from my human divine being, my relationship with the divine, which is contributed to by the divine side, but also very much by my human side, and the interplay of those two sides is enabling a light to burst forth that is the seed of something blossoming in that new creation that takes place at every instant. So you can put all those words aside, but just imagine now as you breathe, every instant creation is renewed. The scientists say this. There's not a continuity of time. There's the smallest instant, the Planck unit of time, and shorter than that it makes no sense. So you could say everything is reborn again at every instant. And our tendency is to, instead of experiencing the freshness of what's emerging and the openness of presence, is to just pull back into the simulation, the construct, and only perceive a little bit more change in the way that things had been before. So perhaps you can remember back to when you were a young child, and the world was so full of wonder. Looking at a butterfly, listening to the birds. Being delighted and surprised by all the things that you discovered anew every day for the first time. Freshness of being. And see if you can incorporate this looping technique I mentioned, only this time you're looping that freshness of perception from the young child in the past, and you're making that available to your adult self, listening to this meditation. So now you have a kind of sparkliness about whatever it is you experience. And the experience could be as simple as just experiencing yourself sitting listening to this meditation, feeling your body and feeling the wonder of what your body is. I mean, it's inconceivable how all these systems in your body, down to the molecular level, to the level of the bloodstream and organs, the nervous system, could come together to enable you to experience life. So imagine now you can hear or sense the music of your own body, the harmonizing of the flow of blood in your body and the rhythm of the beating of your heart, the scintillating of the light that is received constantly from space, the prana, the life energy that comes to you, and the light that is emitted and it's measurable from the very cells of your body, that transformation of the light that you receive, transformed into the light that you emit. And the music of your heart, the music of beautiful emotions, like what your heart feels when you listen to music that just moves you to the depth of your being. And the delight of the input through your senses, through vision, through being able to, as Pirvalaya would say, to see that which transpires behind that which appears. To be able to hang out with a rose and open to the essential nature of that rose and its gifts, the perfume, the color, the texture, the beauty, and the appreciation of things in nature being noticed by us, a tree being welcomed for the shade it provides and the home it offers to so many animals, and the gifts it gives from the things that are made from the trees. So now this allegory of your soul that seemingly was just a composition of you individually, this music, but now you can start to feel and sense and perhaps hear what's been called the music of the spheres. And usually you might have thought, well, this is just the music of the angelic realm. This is coming from somewhere else. But no, it's coming from everything. It's the song of everything, expressing its unique divinity, as are you. And the music of the song of your soul is added to this symphony and harmonizes with the music of everything, the music of atoms even, the music of stars, the music of space, which we used to think of as just empty and nothing in the vacuum, but now we know is teeming with potential energy. Now as you open to this music, perhaps you can feel vibrations externally and internally, as everything in your being now is resonating and dancing and singing with the exaltation of divinity awakening to itself in life, in every realm, in every time, in every space, in every being, in you. And realize that we continually exist in an ocean of blessings, of grace, of wisdom, continually opening to new revelations, including those that could only come through each of us. Emergent wisdom. And now feel what it's like to consider that with each breath that you breathe, you're not only breathing in the oxygen and the other elements of air, and not just the prana or life energy, but you're breathing in the music of existence. And you're feeling the impact of that music on every part of your being, resonating and adding to that music by its own variations upon a theme. And so as you breathe out, you're emanating not just through your nose or mouth, the air that comes out, but you're emanating through your entire being, the music of your soul, the never-ending allegory of your soul, a part of the never-ending allegory of the divine being, awakening to greater and greater capacities of experiencing its own self in life. Your dharma is to be a joyful part of that for all time.
Suddenly yesterday I felt that I could see the clouds parting to reveal the sliver of sun being eclipsed by the moon. And there it was, and there I was, bedecked in a light that revealed inner depths, yet able to perceive a harmony with the manifest, or with a subtle song being sung by the manifest. Can we be balanced enough to sink down to a level of consciousness where we perceive that which is yearning to burst into life? There is a reason we are so excited by the blossoming of springtime, the growth of new plants and leaves on the trees. It is a wake-up call to be always hovering in a space of wonder and new birth, able to welcome the unfolding wisdom of those around us, as well as that which is slowly growing from inside, gathering what our heart tells us is needed for us to join in the new creation with all the freshness that it holds, and celebrating what each of us contributes. And finally, because gratefulness is a very important part of harmonizing, a thank you song you may have heard before. Thank you for the rain that falls so we'll have something to drink. Thank you for the sun that shines that dries the rain that falls from off of our heads. Thank you for the plants and trees and the wonderful things we eat. Thank you for the friends we have and for the friends we'll meet.